Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Scroll Podcast. My name is Ryan.
And I've witnessed man-made horrors beyond your comprehension.
And today we're going to be looking at Never Going Home. This is a party-focused eldritch horror role-playing game set in the trenches of the First World War, inspired by World War Occult art of Charlie Ferguson-Avery. Yeah, art slaps.
Of Vermhack fame.
Yeah, we've looked at, I think that's the only one we've looked at that's actually like written by Charlie Ferguson-Avery, but I'm positive we've looked at games that have Charlie's art before. And I have like everything Charlie Ferguson-Avery's ever done. I should have just grabbed all that because so much of their stuff slaps so hard. I also know that, God, let's tangent right away. At some point, they were talking about doing more Vermag, and I'm still really excited to get more Vermag.
Yeah, Feral Indie Studios is the... Yeah, maybe we never will.
We'll see it. I mean, Vast in the Dark is fantastic from them. We also just got, like, Ave Nox just came out.
Yeah.
I still need to get the regular version of that. I got the special edition, which is gorgeous, but Charlie's art is also on, like, the regular version. So it's one of those things where, like, sometimes you want the regular version even more than the special because of the art. Anyways, yeah, so we're looking at Never Going Home. This is a cool one that it's been on my list forever. And I wanted to do it a long time ago, and then they launched a second Kickstarter, and I'll get to info about that in a little bit. And then I actually mailed you like the original book, so I didn't even have the book because I just backed everything on the Kickstarter for everything on the Kickstarter. For those that can't see the fat stack I got in my hand right now, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 10 books, plus some dice and some cards. So actually, let's look at that a little bit. Let's just hey, we've done like one episode in 3 weeks because we were both super sick, so it's nice to be back. And
we did it. We survived.
Yeah, and Hunter's obviously feeling 100%.
I feel
today.
amazing right now. I didn't go to the ER last night at all. That would be ridiculous.
It'd be crazy to do an episode after that.
Yeah.
But regardless, here we are. So let's talk about Never Going Home a little bit. So Never Going Home was crowdfunded on Kickstarter on December 3rd, 2018, with 786 backers for $33,188, with stretch goals unlocking the books Once More Unto the Breach, Tome of Corrupted Beasts, and a Book of Whispers. And then in 2020, 3 more campaign dossiers were released: Bones in the Dust, Blood on the Snow, and Tears in the Sea. And then it returned to Kickstarter in 2023 for Never Going Home, The Beginning and the End. And that was to fund 3 new books: the campaign dossiers Bile in the Streets and Spit in the Dirt, and the magical source book From Beyond the Veil. It funded on June 10th, 2023 with 781 backers for $65,811. Yeah, between the two Kickstarters in 2018 and 2020, they made about $100,000.
Wow,
I think it was literally, if I did the math, it's like $99,998 or something. It was like the closest to $100,000 you could get. But it's cool. So prior to that, though, as I said, this was inspired by World War Occult art by Charlie Ferguson-Avery. That's actually a Kickstarter that happened that Charlie did, I believe, in 2017. We're going to kick over to the down cam today. Let me turn a light on. And that's actually what this book is right here. So for those in podcast land, I went with the down cam, and I'm showing this. World War Occult with this concept art by Charlie Ferguson-Avery with text by Brian Ferguson-Avery. Together they do Feral Indie Studios. So this is just a dope art book. All the way through, where there's basically a picture on the right side and then a little bit of text on the left side. So first page it says, no, let's skip that one. That's just a so here's one that's got this soldier looking wounded, dead, but has a bit of a crucified look to him. And it says, to keep them out of enemy hands, we were not allowed diaries. Our sketchbooks were forbidden. When my sergeant finds me pinned to page, I promise him I'll burn them all. He knows I'm low on matches. So the entire book's structured like that, where there's a piece of art on the on the right page of the spread, and some really cool vibey writing on the left. Combination of black and white and color all the way through. And as I said, this was the original inspiration for Never Going Home, the game. And then obviously they used Charlie's art throughout. And a lot of the pieces from World War Occult, this book, are in the original Never Going Home book. So
it's a cool book, man. I wish I had this.
This, yeah. I found this on eBay. It actually wasn't too terribly expensive, but even if it was, I would have got it anyway because I love Charlie's stuff. And honestly, the art fucking slaps so hard. Like the vibes are immaculate. I can see why it inspired someone to make a game. But yeah, so on top of all the books here, I'll flip through them so you can see the covers, because honestly, the covers of every single one go so hard. So this is the original Never Going Home book. It's got a number of these kind of like esoteric World War I soldiers on the front, some information on the back. Blood on the Snow is a later one, but it is one of the campaign dossiers. This is the one that's set in 1916. Tome of Corrupted Beast was part of the original campaign. Book of Whispers was a magic book that was part of the original campaign. I love this one with the red cover. It's absolutely stunning. Yeah. Never Going Home. This is From Beyond the Veil. This is part of the second Kickstarter. Then there's Bile in the Streets, which was, I believe, part of the second Kickstarter, but it was a prequel. This is campaign dossier set in 1914. And then we got Bones in the Dust, another fantastic, I mean, they're all fantastic covers, but this one is set in 1915. And then, as I said, Blood on the Snow is set in 1916. Tears in the Sea is set in 1917. And then it is bookended there on the back with Spit in the Dirt, which is set in 1918. And then part of the original campaign too was Never Going Home, Once More Unto the Breach. And that is a book of 21 adventures for Never Going Home. Yeah, and this one is it looks like a folder. Like there's papers and stuff on the back. It's like brown. It's kind of like a manila folder-ish kind of look to it. The rest all have different arts and things like that. So I'm gonna pull this one apart because that's what I want to talk about. So that is all of the stuff for Never Going Home. In addition, they also did put out a set of dice. These are really dope. They have these like skulls with a World War II helmet, but it's also this like weird kind of like eldritch snaky design. And then other for the sixes, and the pips otherwise are little flies. So really dope cool set of dice. Yeah. And then there's a set of cards that I've not opened yet because I haven't played with them yet, so I want to keep them protected. But there is a set of cards that comes with it. It's a full deck of standard playing cards with 52 playing cards and 2 jokers, and you'll understand why there's a deck of cards once we are actually talking about the game. But that is all of the stuff.
Is the deck of cards.
Oh, crazy, right? But that is all of the stuff that you can get with Never Going Home. It's a fat stack of stuff.
It is. There's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of content to interact with, you know?
Yeah. So, So I think I'll hide this for now. We're going to be coming back to the down camera for reasons that will become evident once we get to. But going into... So the actual review starts now. Future Ryan for the timestamps. Never Going Home. Again, the cover slaps so hard. Charlie's art is incredible. It's got
amazing art, yeah.
Yeah, and the logo is really cool too. Like I know it's just like a serif font, but it's very weather beaten logo. Definitely helps with the vibes. But the art is incredible. Color cover with these three, as I said, these 3 World War I soldiers. Yeah. But the very esoteric. The one is like cuts all over this arm. A lot of them have these like kind of like fetishes or decorations on their armors. And World War I was such a different vibe. First of all, it's not Hitler, so that obviously but the gas mask aesthetic that is used. Yeah.
There's also just like something inherently like fucked up about like the whole like extended trench warfare that was like people got sick, they got gout, they were like dying left and right from the conditions. They like really they fought for just miles, like throughout the entire war, really just like a couple miles back and forth because how entrenched they were. It was incredibly dark. Like it makes a lot of sense for like a eldritch horror war setting, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that Trench Crusade also uses World War One as its setting, exactly like you said. Just not that there wasn't trench warfare in World War II, but it was such a focus in World War One that, it was definitely very, 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 very different. So Never Going Home. The +1. We're getting to a credits page. The +1 system, which we'll talk about soon, written by Brandon K. Ayton, Matthew Orr. Writing the book is Irvin Jackson, Matthew Orr, Sarah Orr Ayton. Additional writing from Taylor White. Let me turn this light off. Adventures by Corey Capps, Crystal Mazer, and Stephen Wu. Art from Charlie Ferguson-Avery. And then the editor is Carol Darnell, and the layout is W.M. Knox Gunn. And this is from Wet Ink Games. Wet Ink Games is the people that do this. So Feral Indie is Charlie, but Wet Ink Games does this. They have a number of other games. I think they're the ones that do like there's like a Doggos game. I think they're putting out a cat game too, but they have a bunch of stuff.
I actually looked like 3 weeks ago when we were first supposed to do this, and I've completely forgotten at this point. So
yeah, I have all my notes are hyperlinked to all the Kickstarters, but I forgot to write down the other stuff that Wet Ink Games has done.
Yeah,
they've done a bunch of stuff. A bunch of interesting things. So all right. So
now,
all right. So all right. So before we get too deep in the book, there is a quote right at the beginning. Death is what we see when awake. When we are asleep, it is dreams. Heraclitus, Complete Fragments, Fragment 21. So, we do our best here on the show. A couple of things. Let's do some prefaces. Let's hedge some shit a little bit, right?
Right.
We are very critical here on the show. We have high standards for the things that we go over. We can get super pedantic about things. We can be pretty picky about things. Because I mean that's critique, right? Is a desire to elevate things, right? Is to like, hey, this might be great, but it could be better with these like small tweaks. So those are things we point out, we go over, and things like that, right? We never try to be mean on the show, but we will be blunt. We will sometimes be frustrated. Oftentimes that's because something could be great, but there's something that nags a little bit. So we never try to be mean on the show, is what we're saying.
I do.
But we're going to be pretty critical of this book for a number of different reasons. One of the things that I think both of us had pretty negative opinion on that we'll just knock out right away is the layout.
Yeah, it's pretty egregious across the board in almost every way.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. So let's we'll point out how it's not great as we go through. But here's my first beef. We're gonna look at these 2 pages here. Let's go to fit visible. No, let's go to zoom to page level. Can I page display this into a 2-page view that'll give me both pages? No. Okay, so let's look at this 2-page view here, right? So what we're looking at is basically it's 2 almost completely empty pages. It's the full spread with just like a 1 line for that quote that I said on the left side. But what the background is a page texture. Right. And I think this is one of those things where it's like, I have no problem with using a page texture for a book, right? Like, for example, if you look at like D&D, it's got a parchment-y kind of background, right?
Yeah.
Fine, right? But what this book does is it's not a page texture, it's a fake page.
Right. It's just 1 though.
It's 2, yeah. But so, and there's a page missing here. This is supposed to be together. So it'd be 2 spreads. But the problem is what this one does is a couple of things that I find pretty just not great, that I would avoid going forward. So specifically for this page right here, let's go to zoom to page level again. On the left side of it, as I said, this is a fake page. It's not a texture. So there's actually like it actually looks as if there's a stack of pages on the left side. And then on the right side, there's a spine down the middle, like about a centimeter in. There's a spine of pages on the page, as if it's a fake page that's like spread open.
Yeah.
That's not, it doesn't look good. It looks, in my opinion, like, I don't know what word to describe it except for tacky. Like, every page looks as if it is a fake page, as opposed to just the texture, which would have been fine. I don't like the background texture either. It's a very darkish brown with like a stain on it and a bunch of these like black dots all over it. And if you look to the next page, you'll see the other part of the spine of like what would be like
a spine part is definitely more bothersome than it's just the printed on texture of the page.
That's what I'm saying, is if it was just the texture, if they zoomed it in a little bit, it wouldn't be so bad. But like the fake spine down the middle and the fake
spine
and the fake and the pages on the left side, it actually looks like fake pages. But not only that, the one page, which I think would be the right page on the layout spread, has a bunch of black dots all over that are like part of the texture. That is so annoying when reading the book, because it's actually like these giant black dots in text. And we get to a one page where there's like black dots for like the layout for like bullet points, but that are surrounded by black dots for the texture. And it's a very dark brown. So the black against it gives it this, like, obviously you can read it, but it's a dark brown, like with a black text on it. So it's not great for that reason. So just if you're going to go with a page texture, just do a page texture. Don't do fake page edges and stuff like that. It just looks, I don't know, amateurish. It looks extremely tacky, and it really takes away from the look. And the other problem too is, like you said, it's just the 2 pages. It's one spread of these textures for like 120 pages. It's
really one because it's one and then flipped on the other side. It's the exact same page flipped. So
no, I don't think so. No, it's not, because there would be the black dots on the other one. I think it's a one full spread with like the spine down the middle. So it's one full spread of pages. It just looks so similar.
Black dot, but I guess it's not as many. So
it looks so similar because the stain is like almost a mirror. Yeah. So it's just the same 2 spreads through the entire thing, which also doesn't help with like it looking, I don't know, it makes it. And even the one page even has like a tear on the bottom. Like, it looks like the page is torn. So every other page, you get a fake page tear, but it's the same page tear 60 times. Like, just use a texture. Like, don't use a fake page. It really detracts from the book. But the thing about this, though, is if you actually look in the book, since we're talking about the layout, we'll go right in. We'll look at a page on here real quick. When you actually look in the book, it's kind of less of an issue because it's cropped pretty bad, pretty poorly, because the margins in the actual book are like a half a centimeter. They're literally
crazy small. There is no gutter to anything in here.
There is 0 gutter. There's 0 margin. So they literally cropped it so far that you almost lose the fake pages. Except it's still a little bit on the one. And then if you look at like the fake spine in the middle, it's actually cropped to the point where it's almost gone. So it's almost a little bit better to read the physical, because it looks almost kind of like it's supposed to be there a little bit. Except that when you actually look at like the digital and you see what it's supposed to be, you just realize that like it was cropped super poorly for the book, and the margins are like egregiously small. So reading the physical is awful, because you get like, again, like a half a centimeter on the side of margin, top, side, bottom, and like absolutely no gutter.
That spread right there is such a perfect like representation of what going through this is like.
Yeah, it's rough. So I read it on PDF because the margins were just like breaking my brain, because you can't even really hold the page without like having to move your thumb, because there's not enough room unless you're using like your nail to hold the pages open and not be like over top of so much of the stuff. So that's one of my biggest beefs on the physical, is that they cropped the shit out of this and really destroyed like the margins. But we're going to get into a lot more reasons on why the rest of the layout is pretty poor in our opinion. But that's right off the bat is just the use of not a page texture, but actual fake pages with fake page spine and tears and stuff in it, it does not, in my opinion, and I assume yours as well, does not look good.
I mean, you could probably use like a fake page texture in your own game and it look okay. This is just not done well.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, is like use a texture.
Yeah,
but don't use a fake page, as in like there's a pretend spine and a pretend edges to the page and pretend tears on the page. Just use a parchment background. It's totally fine. You just don't need you don't need this right here. This like fake spine fold and tears and stuff. So continuing on, we get to the table of contents, which is not hyperlinked, and there are no bookmarks at all for the entire thing either. So usability and navigation pretty non-existent.
Luckily it's only like 120 pages.
Right. But also, we're going to get later, there's the table of contents is kind of like weird what they decide to do. And also, like we're going to get later, there's no real differentiation a lot of times. Sometimes you don't even realize that you suddenly hit like weapons.
The next like section, or like, there's not like clear delineation by use of like headers and stuff. Like there are headers and sometimes they're aren't, and sometimes I think the font's a little bit different on them, and so they don't strike you as headers. Or the font's like the same as the text.
They basically use the same font for everything through the entire book, and just use weird variations of bold. Also, the font is not a great choice. This kind of it bothers me when you get closer, when we talk about like the headers and stuff, because everything is bold, basically. Everything is bold, and it's a very wide, thick, bold serif. Like when we're looking at the table of contents page, like the letter spacing is pretty wide on all of it. It's just I don't know. It doesn't look nice to me. Like if you're gonna go with the serif font, it's just not great. What's interesting though, and as we get farther into this, remind me to pull up one of the other books, one of the later ones that has the same kind of vibes, but just a much better layout, and we can point out the reasons why it's that. So let's cruise through this. There's a whole page in the beginning here that is kind of like the first one is like, to the memory of my great grandfather. There's one that says, to those who came home. These are dedications. That's what I meant, from a bunch of the different people in the book. Matt Orr, Brendan Ayton, Sarah Ayton, Irving Jackson, and Charlie Ferguson-Avery each have a dedication at the beginning of this for basically the soldiers or family members in regards to World War I. Then we immediately get into a page called the buy-in. So this is something we're not going to go over. It basically says at the beginning that this is a party-focused role-playing game set in the horror-haunted trenches during the First World War. If this sounds good to you, skip this page and get ready to deploy. If you aren't sure, read on. I'm okay. Like, if you're going to do a what is a role-playing game page, at least preface it by saying that, like, if you're in, don't fucking read this page. I'm fine with that. So there's a number of sections here. It says a role-playing game, and basically says what is a role-playing game. Party-focused, what does that mean? I actually do like this part. It says, uses the +1 system to focus play on growth on what an individual character can do as part of a larger story that follows a group of soldiers called a unit. So basically what this is saying is, like, the individual characters are important, but the unit is most more important play. It's not troop play, but at the end of the day, the point is for the unit to survive, not necessarily the individual characters. And the story is the story of the unit, not the individual characters, which I think is a really neat way to do a military game.
It makes a lot of sense too. So.
Horror haunted, it talks about this is the veil between worlds that is opened by the slaughter from the war and the monstrous whispers of beings wholly alien to humanity that can now be heard. Some people have listened to the whispers enough to gain arcane powers and have struggled to maintain control as their minds and bodies begin to change. Dope. Again, and then it says the First World War, the setting is real Earth, and the characters are all humans. It basically says that the game is set between the years when the veil was torn in 1916 and when the war ended in 1918. And there's some information of stuff like that. And it says, this is your last chance to turn back. So before we get deeper into the book, we talked about the layout a little bit. We will say the vibes of the game,
pretty strong,
immaculate, like insane. like World War One, eldritch horror, so much death that it tore open the veil, and now like these things whisper to you and break your mind and stuff. Awesome.
Yeah. And there's
Awesome.
a big section in the middle that's all like the pseudo history, like it actually is World War One history, and then where it diverges into like this. And I totally enjoyed reading that part. I had a blast reading through that. I thought it was really interesting, and I love the fact there were actual like historical World War One things happening.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get to that, and we're not going to read through too much of it. But like you said,
No.
I love how it's like so much real plugged in, and it's like except for like this part, it's cool. It's a great way to set things in your mind where you're like there's a kernel of truth in it, so it makes it feel more real.
Yeah, it's easy to latch onto when they do that, or when you do that with the historical game.
Absolutely. There are a lot of like diegetic, like artifact kind of things in the book too. Yeah. So there's a lot of the page we're looking at now is a letter. One thing also that is not, in my opinion, great. Like if you're gonna have fake pages, this is how you do it. You don't make the whole page that the words are on fake.
It's on the page.
It's on the page. But the problem is like it's a very, again, the actual page background is a very dark. It's not. I don't even know how to describe this. It's a tannish color. So all these diegetic pieces over it are also brown. And it just, I don't know. It could have been maybe put like a little shadow or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you think it's a little muddy or?
Yeah, it is. The colors are too. I don't know. Again, when we look at, we're gonna go over a bunch of the layout stuff. Maybe midway to remind me when we get to like maybe like the lore stuff to kick over to the other one as we've seen enough of the layout that we can talk about like the one. We're gonna look at Blood in the Snow. To compare the layouts and talk a little bit more once we've gone through. A lot of the diegetic stuff is cool. The writing is okay in it. It's a lot of like letters written home or things like that. Like the beginning is basically like what this whole book is, and it's basically to His Royal Highness King George V. Enclosed is a report I'm required to submit regarding my involvement in and knowledge of the events that occurred on the Somme battlefield beginning July 1st, 1916. And that's basically been the Veil Tour. So there's a whole letter here that's basically saying like, I'm going to tell you a bunch of stuff. It's crazy. Here you go. And then we get to a piece of art. This is another just very weird. This is what I'm going to try not to be super frustrated, but anyone that's listened to the show before knows that I'm going to get frustrated. I don't understand the point. They put a piece of art here, which is a dope piece of art, and then they put these fake, like, metal kind of ornate frame pieces around the corners. Yeah. And then start the playing the game section on the bottom like quarter of this page.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. And they do that a lot where they, for no reason, break sections across multiple sections, multiple pages for a piece of art that they could have either not done or just like, why wasn't this just a whole page? Why wasn't this just like a whole page?
I couldn't tell you. And then on the opposite side, then you have playing the game. So you have a spread that's like art on one side, words on the other.
Right. Yeah. But then we're going to get into what
I had this thought earlier. So.
And they do this a lot, and we're going to point this out a lot. But like, here's the thing. This is the playing the game section, and it's the same. It says playing the game in the middle of the page underneath the art in a font that is only like 2 more than the skill rolls font that's bolded in the exact same font as the skill rolls font, which is also bolded. Then you get into the skill roll, which is obviously then going to be split across 2 pages because you're starting on the quarter at the bottom of the page.
Because you made this weird decision to start without enough room to put it all on one page.
Such a weird, and it's
so weird.
And as far as like layout goes, like I'm not fantastic at layout. I've read a bunch of layout stuff. We obviously go through layout, a ton of stuff like that. There's just some things that are kind of like rules to like doing good book layout, and this every one of those is completely disregarded in this book, and it's extremely frustrating. But so we're going to just start playing the game, and we're going to get into skill roll. So I'm going to read some of this stuff, because the next thing we're going to kind of be critical of this is the rules language. I actually really like this system. I think the system is incredibly interesting. We're going to get into it. The core of the system is basically it's a dice pool system, and then there's the +1 system. It's a plus and then the word 1 and then system, and it allows you to manipulate the dice that you roll, or the things you can do before or after, and then there are also cards incorporated in it, which are used for a lot of really cool things. So the amalgamation of all of those things together, super interesting. right? But again, the rules language and the way some of this is explained is not wonderful.
Yeah, it could have been trimmed down a lot in a lot of places, or reworded.
I think rewording would help. So we're going to go through skill roll. This is like the kind of core of the game. So when a character wants to do something, they may be asked to make a skill roll against a target number, a TN. Great. Some target numbers are set by missions. The narrator sets all other target numbers. Players roll d6 dice called skill dice, equal to their training in the skill. Dice showing 5 or 6 are successes. So we know it's a dice pool system, and 5 and 6 is a success. The number of successes
system already.
We love a good dice pool. I don't know why we've done so many dice pools.
I love a good dice pool system.
The number of successes in the roll must meet or exceed the target number to accomplish the action. So the target number set, let's say it's 3. You're going to roll a bunch of dice, and you have to get at least 3 5s or 6s. Easy peasy. On each roll, the player may use as many +1. It's a plus and then the word 1 again. Manipulations equal to their current score of the governing attribute of the skill being rolled. Okay, so if you have a 4 in a skill, that gives you 4 possible manipulations, right? Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Attributes do not decrease through use. So you have 4 each time. You don't lose them by spending them. You just have them. Failure simply means what the character was attempting doesn't happen. I'm not a fan. Obviously, we like, nothing ever happens, but it says you do. And then here is my first beef, and they do this a bunch. It says all skill rolls take the form, quotations, roll, bracket, skill name, bracket, colon, TN, number, quotations. So that is roll, skill name, target number, and then the number that you need to hit, right? That's fine. That makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then it says, which means, quotations, roll dice equal to skill training, manipulate dice equal to attribute rank, meet at least the required number of successes. That is not what that means at all.
Yep.
That is a very weird way to write that, because that is not what that means at all. What that means is roll a skill and beat a target number of whatever it is, right? That is what that means. It does not mean roll dice equal to skill training, manipulate dice equal to attribute rank, meet at least the required number of successes. They literally could have just put that kind of at the beginning, or say like break those into 2 separate sentences and says like, in summation, what a skill roll is this thing. It's a very weird way to be like, here is a formula, and that means this completely separate thing. That is the definition of all skill rolls.
Not very mathematical of them,
No, it's weird. Also, what is an attribute rank?
Oh, that's weird.
It is weird. That was kind of rhetorical, because I'm going to bring it up a bunch.
Do they mention that attribute rank again?
They do in very weird spots. So let's move. The next part, we get to skill manipulation, which is the +1 system. Right. The attributes are linked to specific skills, which dictate ones they can manipulate. Easy peasy, right?
Yeah.
A character's score, comma, or parentheses, rank in a skill's governing attribute dictates how many times a skill can be manipulated. A roll can be manipulated in the following ways. So now we know in the skill manipulation section what rank is, but again, this is a very weird way to write a rules language, because what it should say is a character's rank, parentheses, is the attribute score, because the rank is your keyword. Right. Score is not your keyword. So why would you put the keyword in parentheses as opposed to just saying the character's rank in a skill, parentheses, what you have in the attribute, explain that in parentheses, right, would be what that is, right? So it's weird to put the keyword in there. But when we get to character creation, let's try to find rank again.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, the +1 system basically says that whatever you have in an attribute, whatever your rank is in your attribute, say your rank is 3, you get 3 manipulations each time you roll a skill. Okay? And there are before a roll and after a roll options. Before a roll, you can temporarily gain an untrained skill. Dice are bought separately, in parentheses. Okay? Add a dice to the roll. Example, roll 4 dice on a skill with 3 training. So, which is a weird way to say just add 1 more dice.
Yeah. That example is not very useful. There are later examples that are more useful, but I remember reading that one and being like, I don't know what that means. But immediately after, there are better examples. So
also saying temporarily gain an untrained skill is a very very weird, confusing way of saying that you can roll on a skill that you don't have training in.
Yeah,
because temporarily gaining an untrained, you're not. Like it's a weird way to kind of think. It's a backwards way. Maybe it's just not the way my brain works, but to be like you temporarily gain a skill versus saying that you can on this roll you can roll on a skill you don't have training in.
Yeah, there's some way to reword a lot of stuff that's on this page and other ones.
Yeah. So then after a roll, add a pip to a die, which is saying it says example change a 4 to a 5. Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
And then re-roll any number of dice. And then keep the result. And that is once per skill roll, you can do that. And then it immediately goes into 3 examples.
Yeah.
And why immediately? I mean, there's not even a tab. There's not a separation between. There's nothing that says that it is that they are even examples. So I got like half a line in before I was like, wait a minute, like what are we talking about?
I was like, so this is an example. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's 3 of them, but again, there's no break. There's no change in font. There's no italics. There's no for example. There's no nothing. There's literally, again, not even a space. It is literally one line and the very next line. It just immediately starts, which is weird because there's plenty of room when you get to the bottom that they could have put one line between just so there's some separation. One of the examples, just so we know what we're talking about, Simpson has 2 training in ranged and 3 ranks of guts. Anyway. To hit an injured trench stalker requires 4 successes. His player buys 2 extra dice with 2 points of guts because he has 3 ranks in guts, right? So we call them score, we call them ranks, and then we call them points. Multiple different keywords for all the same thing. So 2 points in guts could have been 2 ranks in guts, and rolls 5, 4, 3, and a 1. Okay, he keeps the 5 and rolls the remaining 3 dice again. So those are his 3 manipulations. He bought 2 extra dice and then did a re-roll. Okay, rolled a 6, a 5, and a 2. A total of only 3 successes. The shot misses. Great. I think that's super fucking interesting.
I do too. I think the manipulations are cool. I think they give you options in the dice pool system, and I think that they are the cool part of this for sure.
Yeah. The +1 system is really great. Yeah. The skill, all of this is super, in my opinion, super interesting. It's a dice pool system. You have attributes. Your ranks on those attributes give you a pool to use, and that pool determines how many manipulations per skill roll you have. Really great. The really rules language for it really could use.
Yeah, I could use some
better writing.
Punching up, but like I really do like the concept of this system. What was I going to say? I totally blanked on what I was going to say, but it was going to be a nice thing. God, what was I going to say, Ryan? This is your fault, Ryan.
I don't know.
It's not because I was up till 5 a.m. or anything.
Yeah. Actually, look at my notes. I don't like, obviously us, like, you know, I don't like the idea that like something just doesn't happen, right? And that is the thing that is like clearly written in the rules. It literally says you just miss. That's it.
Yeah, I don't like that. I do remember what I was going to say. More or less. The numbers are very small in this game for like amounts of dice and dice pool, but your to hit sometimes will be like 4, which is like genuinely really incredibly hard to do in a dice pool system that's hitting 5 or 6. So it is really cool that your manipulations give you so much wiggle room, especially with the re-rolls, because that's like really statistically significant to making this work a lot better and still feel like, I feel like a very heavy and horrifying game where you could fail. Yeah. And failure, nothing never happens. I do agree.
Yeah, I think that the +1 system really is extremely fun and interesting. Like you said, the math seems to math really, really well, and the manipulations are designed because, like, for example, even like just changing the pip, right? Because, you rolled like 2 4s. Okay, then I'll change one of the 4s to a 5. Like you just said, math-wise, that's great. Being able to re-roll is great. Adding more dice is great. And then being able to roll in things that you don't have skills in, because you can temporarily gain the skill. You can roll on untrained skills. All of those are exactly ways, like you just said, that to alter the statistics. But what's interesting about it is all the choice mechanics involved in it, where you're like, fuck, I only have 3 points in guts, man. Do I add another dice in before? Do I do another one after? So the skill roll, every skill roll you get becomes this like kind of like gamble of, you know, all of these different options for trying to like eke the best out. And it's so interesting. It's so incredibly interesting. And that's one reason we went over this game. We're going to be pretty critical of this game, and we don't do games we don't like usually. We definitely don't anymore. We sometimes accidentally do because we get too deep in the book to not do it and realize we don't like it. I love this game. I think it's really great. We're going to be pretty critical of the product, like the writing, the layout and things like that. But the game itself is so... I do want to say is so good in my opinion, and is really, really interesting the deeper we get into it. But the whole book could use a 2E with a whole new revamp on a lot of it. Anyway, moving on. Challenges is the next thing. And basically what a challenge is it's basically like a group skill test, right? It's when challenges is too big to overcome alone and require the characters to work together. It requires multiple rolls and things like that. Fun, interesting. If you're going to have kind of a quasi-troop style, then challenges are great. We're not going to go over that too much. Sick piece art here. But also
all the
weird.
Art's sick.
Yeah, but also in weird layout because like... it's chopped off on the sides and tops. Why don't you just blow it out to the edges of the pages? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why have it chopped on your word margins? It's a piece of art. Just blow it out for the entire thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, again, like none of the rules for like good layout were followed in here. And if we go to, so for example, I mean, let's look at it. This is the same piece of art in the book, in the actual like World War Occult book. See how they just like have it filling the entire page all the way to the page edges? I don't understand why you wouldn't just do the exact same thing on this page as opposed to just like cropping it down to fit your word margins. It's just not a good design choice in my opinion. Moving on from there, we have more diegetic things here. We have a letter to Mary Warbeck from Alfred. It's great. It basically is like a things are going, we're on the front, you know, kind of thing. And it's great. We're not going to go over it a bunch. Yeah. The font choice in it is interesting.
Mary and Alfred's correspondence actually continues through this book. Like there are several letters to them back and forth to and from them.
Yeah. And I do really like this use of these like diegetic in-world pieces in the game. I think it's super vibey. And like you said, and you can see Alfred, like shit getting darker for Alfred as they go through the correspondence.
Yeah. Like, oh, he's having a bad time.
Yeah, it's a cool way to do it. But also, again, they do this thing where they use this like letter page and then go to the cards page on like the bottom quarter instead of just like centering that on a page and starting cards on the next page. It's so weird. It's so
really,
weird.
Truly bizarre, actually, that they do, and not even once. Like it really, like this whole section, it would look so much better, like immediately if you're just like, just move this down, and all the section starts on the page.
Well, and the thing that drives me nuts about it is we get to cards, right? Which is it's letter, it's sentence capitalized, so it's CARDS, but only the C is capitalized, but it's a header.
Right.
And then, but immediately underneath that is like a subheader in the exact same font, but like 2 sizes smaller. So there's like no real differentiation. So there's no use of like headers.
1 size smaller though.
It's so bad. Like I'm trying not to say like that it's bad, but like there is no good structure to the way that like headings and subheadings and things are used through this entire book, because randomly we're going to get to stuff where like they'll just start randomly underlining stuff too as a way to differentiate things, which is like super weird. And like there's, again, it's the exact same font the entire they don't even capitalize the whole word cards, so it feels like a little bit different. It's just and also cards is on the left, but like the playing the game was like centered, and like it's just there was no consistency to any structure that they use on this whatsoever. But the thing that drives me nuts specifically is there's this giant letter home, right? And then we get to the cards. the journey, healing, and character growth, right? A standard deck of 52 playing cards with 2 jokers is used to represent the emotional resources and memories of the characters. For 6 or more players, 2 decks with 2 jokers each are shuffled together. And then it goes to the players may use any decks they have on hand. The 4 traditional suits are called for in the game, so make them recognizable. And then it talks about spades, clubs, hearts, diamonds, and jokers. But because the letter is so long, spades, clubs, hearts, and diamonds is on one page, and then jokers, which is in the same bullet pointed list, is then broken onto the next page because of how long the letter is, instead of just moving it up or starting it all on the next page. They do that constantly, where they will put a piece of art or like these fake the diegetic letter pieces in, but that forces the layout into a bad design decision to separate rules text across multiple pages when you could easily just not do that.
It is such a funny decision. Yeah, like it's such a weird decision to separate rules text mid the explanation of a thing. You know, it's not like, oh, they explained a thing and then the separation goes to the next thing that they're explaining. They're literally in the middle of the thing that they're talking about.
Yeah, they break it apart for no reason, because they could either move the art, have the art as a full page, or just move things around. But we're also going to get to the start of this page too, on the Joker section, where it's like the word jokers is bullet pointed, and then there's 2 bullet points underneath it. But then also you get to those like weird black dots I said about, like the on the page. So in this little section here, there's literally like 6 black dots, and like half of them are bullet points and half of them are page texture, but it all looks the same. And it's just really weird. So the cards wise, spades is knowledge, learning, growing, overcoming, suffering. Clubs is things, overcoming obstacles, action, adventure. Hearts is relationships, which are your emotion or connection. Diamonds is yourself, your ambition or hopes. And then you have the jokers. And jokers are considered wild and functions as any non-joker card. And then after a joker is played or revealed for any reason, reshuffle the deck, including the joker. Super interesting. When we talk about the cards a little bit more, it's a really great way to do that, especially when you drop the joker. But then underneath that, you have another bullet pointed thing about the joker, except the bullet point is like way off to the side for no reason. The black joker
I thought
also,
that was page texture.
No, that dot
where it says the black joker,
that is a bullet point.
Oh my god, I thought that was page texture. Genuinely, I'm not just saying that to go in on this. I actually did think, I was like, oh, there's not another bullet, which would make sense.
But it's the only bullet point in that entire line, basically through the entire thing. It's so far to the left of the other ones.
And the indentation's not in line for the actual words with the other words as well, but it's not.
It's its own indentation. It's entirely its own indentation,
what the fuck,
which is
bro?
Double tabbed in compared to the single tab that starts the paragraph right on the line below it. It's just not good. The Black Joker also triggers a draw for possible corruption, which we'll get to. Okay. Each card in the player's hand represents their character's memories and constitutes what makes them human. Let me just go through this. The aces are high. Jokers are wild. Let's just get into this a little bit. Aces are high. Maximum cards is 7. If you use 1, it means you're forgetting something about yourself. So as it said earlier, it says that they represent emotional resources and memories. So using 1 means you're losing part of yourself, which is super vibey for this game.
Yeah. Well, you're never going home, so
hey. Yeah. Cards are earned for surviving missions, completing special tasks, defeating antagonists, or when the narrator thinks a player has done something awesome. So cards are used for a lot of stuff, and there's a whole list here for what the cards are used for. There's the Journey Initiative, +1, Whispers, Healing, Character Growth. But character growth, there's a piece of art to the right of this. So there's there's a text wrap around all of the art of a soldier standing there. So that character growth at the bottom is broken across 2 pages. So there's 4 lines to start the next page, as opposed to just not putting the piece of art here and keeping all of the explanation on 1 page, because then underneath that is a box. And I think it's one of the only boxes like this is in the entire thing. And it gives you more explanation for Joker stuff, even though Jokers are on the start of the previous page. Or the very top of the page, right? So the very top of one page has Joker stuff, and then the very top of the next page has more Joker stuff instead of just putting it underneath the Joker stuff above that. Which Joker is which? Traditionally, Jokers basically it says there's a black Joker and a colored Joker in almost all card decks. If there is, just pick one if there isn't, right?
Hey, I just want you to know I scrolled really fast. That's the only box in this that's not around art. Like, it's just a standalone thing. So it's
so, again, like the layout choices in this are so weird. So quick rundown really of what each of these are. The journey, right? Players must contribute at least one card each journey made by the unit. If they do not have any cards, they put one in from the deck towards the journey without looking at it. Capital J. What's a journey?
I was going to ask you this. I was like, okay.
You know how long it is so we found out what a journey is?
Where is it?
It's about 60 pages from now.
What's it under, just so I know?
It's in the GM section. And the players never is it explained the structure of play for players and the journey, which is basically like the whole game until like page 60 in the GM section. So anyway, initiative, player who reveals the highest card. I love the initiative system in this too.
Yeah, it's the
player
really cool.
who reveals, the player who reveals the highest card. So basically, in your hands, when combat starts, everyone has to reveal a card. The player who reveals the highest card chooses who acts first in each combat. Cards revealed for this purpose are not discarded. Players without any cards may discard an initiative card from the deck, which is not added to their hand. So basically, they draw from the deck and then just show their initiative. Mm-hmm. But basically, if you are the highest one, you get to choose who acts, which is cool.
I think it's cool. I also think it's cool that they have this really fun initiative system, and then also for the GM's ease of use, the monsters just have numbers. Which I'm like, I appreciate that as a GM because I know that I don't want to be drawing a bunch of cards while I'm working on running this game. So
yeah, they do a good job of the enemies and stuff. So +1, a card may be spent for a +1 effect. Whispers, many whispers require cards. Healing in combat cards can be spent on a 1-on-1 basis to negate damage. And out of combat,
a card magic, by the way. So I don't know if we said that out loud.
Oh no, yeah, well, yeah, Whispers magic. Well, there's a whole section on whispers. In combat, they can be spent on a 1-on-1 basis to negate damage. Out of combat, a card can be burned at any time to heal any one attribute 1 point. This implies taking a break, mentally preparing yourself, or bandaging your wounds, because we'll get into why you need to heal yourself with that. And then character growth. At the end of a mission, characters can spend sets of cards to increase their attributes and skills. So you get cards for a bunch of different reasons. You spend them for a bunch of different reasons, but you need them in order to basically level up. It says, in general, the number of cards needed is 1 more than the number of the new rank in the skill or attribute. For example, buying a 4th pip in bronze. Why is it called pip instead of rank?
I thought it was rank, you know?
We've already... In bronze requires discarding 5 cards, and then we'll get to character creation stuff later. So, again, it's such a... Weird. Anyway, we're going to cruise through some of this a little bit faster. So corruption, certain instances will cause a player to draw for corruption or take a chance. So there's whisper effects, adversary abilities, mission incidences, using the black Joker. Oh, as we said before, the black Joker is the only one that if you do use it, you have to reshuffle the deck and draw for corruption. And then for character advancements, for whispers, ranks 3, 4, and 5, basically says when a corruption chance occurs, the player draws a card from the deck and looks at it without revealing the card to the other players. If it is a black card, the character gains 1 corruption point. There's an extra space in there. If it is a red card, no corruption occurs. After the player sees the card, they pass it to the narrator, who also looks at it, and the narrator keeps a secret list of who has gained corruption. So the only people that know if they've been corrupted or not are the player who draws for it and the narrator / the GM. Right? I do
really love that. So
yeah,
your buddies around you don't know. You're slowly going insane with dark magic.
Yeah, the narrator keeps it a secret. Corruption is not cleared at the end of missions, though there may be chances to shed corruption in specific situations. If any character has 5 corruption points at the end of a mission, they do not return to the base of the unit. They are just one of the capital O others now. So love that. If at any time someone has 3 corruption, the narrator can choose to add from the deck to the journey 1 card per player with 3 corruption. We don't know what the journey is yet, but you get to explain it. If at any time someone has 4 corruption, the narrator can choose to add up to 2 cards to the journey per player with 4 corruption, and this represents the chaotic outside influence. The player and narrative should both keep track of their corruption, and the player may not wish to write down the character's corruption because it's supposed to be a secret. I mean, write on your sheet. No one's going to look. The narrator keeps a log. We've already explained this a bunch of times. As a character gains more corruption, this illustrates their slow loss of humanity. How much they roleplay their corruption is up to the players. As a character takes more corruption, they may not make the most optimal choices. Basically, you and the narrator know that you have corruption. RP, the more corrupt you get. And once you hit 3 and 4, it can actually mechanically affect the way that the game is played. And at 5, when the mission's done, you're crazy and you just are one of the
you might turn into a werehair and get hunted by your friends,
Yeah, so cool. Love it. So let's talk a little bit more about so then we have another something from Alfred's journal. Then we get to combat. Notice the size difference between combat and then initiative order underneath it. How vastly different those things are. One looks like a header and one doesn't. Again, no structured whatever to font sizes, bolding, anything, whatever. So we're going to cruise through combat real quick. So there's an initiative order. So basically it's your highest ranking card. You do not discard it. The highest ranking one goes first, and then they pick who goes next. I love that whoever goes gets a pick. Death in Space does it.
Popcorn style initiative where you pick your next person,
Yeah. After each action, the character who acts determines. Yeah. Death in Space does it, and I was like, let's see how that goes until we played it, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Because if you just pick all of the good guys to go first, you're going to have an entire turn where all the bad guys are just fucking you up. So you have really can strategically decide how you want to do that. Defense. So basically how the way the defense works is the targeted attribute. The rank of the targeted attribute is the target number for any attack. Okay, so attacks target brawn by default, but some abilities can target other attributes. So basically, whatever the brawn is the target number that you're trying to get past, and that's what your target number is too.
Yeah.
The way armor works, the target number is brawn or armor, whichever is higher, and attacks that target other attributes are not affected by armor. So if you're, if it's attacking, what are your attributes, by the way?
Brawn, guts, and there's another one, and
there's another one.
Health is considered an attribute as well.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Super well explained so far. Damage is by weapon or whisper, and then there's a whole page of sample combat, which it's like an entire page and more. It
is like a page and a half, and I was like, very interesting. I started reading it, and I was like, cool. And
it makes sense. It's a great example of play.
It's a perfect example.
I love it. You should read it. Again, when I read this, I was like, this system fucks. Like, it's really fun and interesting. Cool. Like, it's really interesting. Then there's a whole weapon section, which for some random reason is like the only time it suddenly changes font to what is, in my opinion, a way better font.
Yeah.
It's like a typewriter-y style font.
Yeah.
But for no reason whatsoever, it just turns into this kind of a table with a completely different font that is the only time this font is used in the entire book.
It's a good font.
And it uses these box kind of highlights for tabletop things that no other thing is used. So weapon damage and abilities basically goes through all the weapons. Goes through all the melee weapons. So fists, knives, clubs, sword, bayonets, staff, firearms, including pistols, rifles, and machine guns, explosives, grenades. And then it gives you basically, we'll pick one. So we'll say that a sword or a bayonet has weapon. So sword or bayonet has damage, so this does 1 damage, and then it's got an ability. So +1 damage, parentheses 2, and then wreck, parentheses 3. What does that mean? We'll get to it in a second. So what is wreck? It says permanently reduce armor of the target by 1. So how do weapons work? So for weapons, successes in excess of the number required to hit usually the target's brawn, are spent after rolling for various weapon effects. The number of successes needed for each effect is listed in parentheses below. I love this. First of all, it feels good because it's the same kind of way that the +1 manipulation works, so the consistency feels fantastic.
Yeah.
But using like it's always interesting to when you do a dice pool game, how games decide what to do with extra successes. Like, I only needed 2, but I got 5. Like, you should get something for that. This game uses that with your weapons, and it's really cool. So, for example, the sword or bayonet does 1 damage, but if you get 2 successes in excess, you get to do +1 more damage. And if you get 3 successes in excess, you get to do the wreck damage, which is reducing the target's armor by 1.
Yeah.
So almost every weapon. Cool. Yeah. And there's a bunch of different weapon abilities. There's aim, which is re-rolling your damage die. Assault, which is ignoring armor. A critical, which is you roll D6 for damage instead of just the 1 or 2 you normally get. Flurry, fragmentation, spray, stun, and then wreck. So a lot of really, the way the weapon system, neat, simple, consistent, really love it a lot. General equipment basically says it's abstracted. You're soldiers, you got soldier shit on you. Love that.
I like that because this is definitely more of like a game about telling a story and less so like a dungeoneering slog through whatever, you know?
Exactly. All right, we're going to cruise some of this other stuff. There's a big section on vehicles. And guess what? It works exactly like how you think vehicles work. They drive, they shoot, and that's it. So it goes over trucks, tanks, and airplanes. So you get a little breakdown of truck. You get initiative value, armor, the brawn for the truck, and then it's got skills and abilities for the truck, the tank, or the airplane. Cool. Love that. Interesting. Whispers. Okay, so basically the way whispers work is the powerful beings from beyond the veil whisper through the cracks in reality. Those who choose to listen to these whispers learn how to manipulate reality, and you can RP it however you want. That's basically how whispers work. Is that the veil was torn asunder and something is whispering to you, and you can use those whispers. It's really interesting, super vibey. The writing that is used to all this. The whisper skill can be used to know general information about magic, like recognition of a rune, identifying the effects of a particular whisper, or potentially knowing the weaknesses or habits of supernatural creatures. If the whisper skill is bought temporarily, it only applies to the knowledge. Like, there's a whole breakdown of all the things you can do with the whispers, and that's, I'm not going to go through all that. So
but it exists.
It does. The steps of casting a whisper, you choose a whisper and any augments. You spend any spell requirements, discard a card, take damage, anything like that. You roll for successes. You make additional sacrifices if your path needs it. And if successful, you apply the effects. Easy peasy, right? So there's a bunch of different whisper paths. There are blood rites, rotten tricks. So there's 2 bronze, 2 smarts, and 2 guts paths. So there's 6 total paths. So the 2 bronze paths are blood rites and rotten tricks. The 2 smarts paths are old ways and elemental rituals, and the 2 guts paths are healing words and chaos songs. Let's go through one of them so we can talk about a whole whisper path, because it's kind of like a big core of the game.
Yeah. Let's do. Blood rites is a good basic one, and rotten tricks is a good like atmospheric war, World War One. So you pick one of those. Let's
do blood rites. Like you said, it's brawn. It's pretty straightforward. So the blood rites path: the caster willing to use their own blood as a source. We love blood magic here on the show.
Blood magic.
The caster willing to use their own blood as a source of power becomes much harder to stop until they bleed themselves dry. For each blood rite they use, they must take 1 damage to brawn. So you're actually damaging your attribute. This counts as 1 automatic success. Many rites do not require a skill roll because the blood mage targets themselves. They may take additional brawn damage themselves, or allies may take the damage to create additional successes. 1 point of damage per success. This additional damage may be taken before or after rolling the dice. So you get a bunch of blood rite effects here. You got strength, scabs, speed, interject, blood blade, and blood double. So we'll pick 2 of these. Blood blade. A magical blood streams from the caster's open wounds and forms a solid object to cut into enemies. The attack targets brawn and deals 1 damage. +1 damage for 1 extra success. You can do flurry for an extra success, and then there's the target may be made from range with an extra success. So that's good. And don't forget, just by casting it, you damage yourself and get 1 success right off the bat. And then blood double. When the caster would take damage, instead their body explodes into a pool of blood, and the caster appears unhurt nearby. It lasts until used or until end of combat, and you get +1 additional double. So basically, you do like a what do they fucking do in Naruto where it suddenly becomes like a log?
They escape when they replace themselves with a log. Substitution. There you go. Yeah,
you're basically doing a blood substitution, which is cool. So, I
do really like that power, by the way. Just like the vibiness of you get killed and actually just falls into a pool of blood and you step out from somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, it's cool. The vibes and the mechanics throughout this entire section, for the entire Whisper section, is really, really fun and interesting. Like the Rotten Tricks ones are cool. And again, I like that they give you 2 paths for every attribute. So if you really want to play a smarts person, you can lean into that with your whispers, which is really, really great. We're not going to go over too much of that because we're 17 pages into a 120-page book. But surprisingly, we're actually like halfway done.
Oh, we're pretty. Yeah, there's not a ton after this. I mean, there's lore and then the GM section, the bestiary. But yeah, the lore is most of it.
Yeah, we still have to go over to the entire character creation section, which is pretty simple. Here's another. No, this isn't the one. So. More diegetic documents here as we go through the bottom, just like a bunch of different pages in Alfred's journal. Then we get to character creation, which is, again, it says recruitment at the top, randomly underlined for no reason.
Yep. Yeah.
Not capitalized. The same size as everything else. It's just so, again, anyway. Okay.
Yeah. I was what's recruitment? So
yeah, this is the way the character creation works. You divide 10 points amongst your 3 attributes: brawn, smarts, and guts. So brawn it's all exactly what you think it is. So each stat requires a minimum of 1 and can be enhanced later through gameplay. The average human ability is 3. I love that they say this. The average human ability is 3 and the peak human ability is 6. Attributes greater than 6 indicate superhuman and possibly supernatural abilities. I really like that it gives you that context of you have to have at least 1 in everything, and if you have less than 3, you're less than average in that. Yeah. So it's a great way to do it. Attributes govern 3 things: health, defense, and skill manipulation. So health is your physical, mental, and emotional health. When you take damage, you reduce the targeted attribute. This gives me Cairn. It's Cairn a little bit, right? Where like after you get through your hit, into the odds. Yeah. Where after you get through your hit protection, you start hitting attributes. This goes straight to attributes, which sucks because your attributes are what determines your manipulations. So if you're losing attributes, you're losing your ability to do manipulations.
Yeah. In a strong manner.
So when you take damage, reduce the targeted attribute. If any attribute is reduced to 0, your character dies. That's it. They just fucking die. Its defense is this is the target number others need to hit to damage the attribute. And then skill manipulation. This is basically a copy paste of what was written before. It's the +1 system. The attributes are linked to specific skills that dictate blah, 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 blah. And then it gives you a before the roll and after the roll section. And then the lower an attribute gets, the easier it is to hit and the less manipulation you have at your disposal, right? So we just went through character creation. Did it talk about rank at all?
No.
Not a single fucking time. Yeah. There's only one other time that rank comes up in this entire thing, and it's coming up. But it's just so weird that they rank, pip, like score. There's no consistency to the keyword used for a very important part of the game, which is the number you give to your attributes. Again, that's not good. Gender, sexuality, and personal history. They exist. Again, here's a page where they actually just put the art as the page.
There we go. We did it. We got it one time. And then they start the next page in a new section that can all be not cut halfway through weirdly.
But what's crazy is see how big the word training is, and it's underlined. It's not the same size as the word for recruitment. Look at how small recruitment is. Yeah, it's underlined.
Okay.
But the font size is the same as the rest of the font size and everything else.
Funny, because going back up, combat, corruption, none of these cards, none of the other ones are underlined.
Nope. But again, recruitment is the header for this section, and it is, let's say it's size 10 and everything else on the page is 10. I totally get that. But then when you get to the next thing, training, it's like size 16. It's so much bigger. Like, so the complete and total lack of consistency in all of the headings and subheadings and bolding and underline and everything is just, it's like every single page they just forgot any concept of like consistency for what they'd done before. It's crazy. Training, select 3 skills from the following list, and these are your trained skills. So the list is athletics, melee, which is hand-to-hand combat, stealth. And they're by attribute too. So athletics, melee, and stealth are all your brawn. Communication, knowledge, and mechanics are your smarts. And investigation, ranged, and transport are your guts. And then whispers are variable. It's your magic. And then you assign 3 skill dice among your trained skills. So each point of training represents either a level of formal schooling.
Why is this written like this, by the way, coming up?
Bro. Oh, here's another box.
Here's another box.
Each point of training represents either a level of formal schooling in the subject or years of experience. These points can be distributed in any way. 300, 210, 111. A trained skill with no skill dice is still considered a trained skill. If you assign a skill die to the whisper skill, choose 1 whisper path and choose 1 spell from that path. When you assign additional skill dice to the whisper skill, you can either add training to a current path or train in a new path. You will have 1 spell for each point. I don't know, man.
Can we touch on how fucking hilarious this is? Like, you have 3 points to spend between 3 things. You can divide them however you want. Here's written down all the possibilities for how to divide these between. It's like, yeah, fucker, there's 3 skills and 3 different things to put them in. Like,
it's weird. Deployment. Draw 3 cards representing your starting mental and emotional resources. So this is saying, so deployment is you start the game with 3 cards in your hand, and we talked about the way that cards is right. We talked about cards. You start with 3. So this is how your character works. A quick rundown of character creation and everything we just talked about. So you have 3 skills, or you have 3 attributes: brawn, smarts, and guts. You start by distributing 10 points across all of those, right? And those attributes determine your health, your defense, and the number of times you can manipulate things, right? And then you pick 3 skills to have training in. And then you have 3 skill dice. And then you give a dice to any combination of those 3 skills.
Right.
And then
but if you need to know what those combinations look like, they have to.
They have that. Yeah. And then you draw 3 cards. That is how to do a character creation. It's pretty simple and straightforward. I like it. Yeah. If you happen to put one of your dice in the trained skill of whisper, you pick a whisper path and you have your characters. That's how it works. And then character growth is the only other time we talk about rank at all. The way character growth is you receive decoration cards at the end of your mission that you can use to build up your character. That is the way the cards work. And the way this works is you can do skills, attributes, or modifiers. So if you choose to do skills, a new skill, any combination of cards, and the cost is 1 plus the number of extra skills. First new skill costs 2 cards, the second costs 3, etc., etc. You can have a new skill die, so any combination of cards. We talked about before, it has to be like 1 more than what you need. The cost is 1 plus the number of the new training pip. Filling in pip 4 on communication skill costs 5 cards. Yeah. Attributes and increase an attribute, any combination of red cards. The number of cards spent is 1 plus the number of the new attribute rank. So if you want to take a rank from 3 to 4, you have to spend 4 cards. Oh, I just hit space. Collecting this many red cards should be difficult. So only red cards let you increase attribute, which is interesting.
Right.
And then modifiers. If the cards are all the same suit, cost is reduced by 1. you must have enough to buy the advancement, but keep one card of your choice. And then if the cards are all face cards and or aces, increase the effect by 1. For example, 1 more training pip, new skill start with 1 pip, attribute increased is by 1 rank, everything. So I like that the you can actually try to build out your deck for like your suits and stuff like that.
Little strat going on for the deck building portion. Yeah. The interaction with cards is pretty cool. So first I was like, do I like this because it's just like a thing? But I think I do. You know, I think it adds meaningfully to the game. It doesn't feel like it's tacked on. There's also like obviously like a interesting meta to playing this game when you kind of get it down with the cards and like where to use them best. But yeah, it's cool.
So that is the rules of the game and character creation, right? So let's talk about this real quick. We've talked about this over and over again and harped it on the show numerous times. So here's my thought on how this is poorly structured. We read the rules for the game before we ever knew anything about character creation whatsoever. So we talked about, I think attributes are mentioned like once, but then we talk about them a bunch. I wish that they would have maybe given that like skill roll and maybe even like the first page, right? Basically skill roll, the +1 manipulations, and then stuffed character growth in there, or the entire character creation section, and then put all the rules after. Because knowing that I start with 3 cards and then telling me how the cards work would make the context be a lot better than saying, hey, this is how cards work, and you're like, oh fucking K, like, all right. Cool. And then like 15 pages later, like, oh, okay, I get to start with 3 cards. You know what I mean? Like, we've talked about this a bunch. Like, the best way, in our opinions, to do layout for rules and character creation is to give a brief overview of the system, character creation rules, and then all the rules of the system after, so that people know what they're using as they're learning it, so that you know you have 3 cards. So when you read the card section, you have the context of like what's going on with that. So I would have rearranged like that completely. And if you're gonna do, if you are gonna do it where it is all of rules or all of character creation, I would say I would put character creation first and then all the rules after. But I think a brief overview, character creation, and then all the bulk rules is ideal.
There's just a really clear like lack of hard structuring of how information's introduced. Like, it's not introduced thoughtfully. It just is like on like, oh yeah, we're talking about this. It's on the page, you know, but it's not like all aspects of whatever is being explained. And it's also not in the order that would make it even easier to like provide you context to anything else going on.
Yeah. And not only that, so as we went through, like the table of contents is such a weird choice of things to do, right? So like when we go back to notice when we got to like remember when we hit the weapons page, which is it's in the middle of a page. It's not even like starting the top of a page. So weapons is like a thing in the table of contents, but it's not even its own like header in its own page or anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird choice throughout a lot of these, because I think like the Veil and No Man's, some of these other ones, they're just like not a bolded section, not their own page, not anything. They just randomly decide to pick them. But anyway, so we're going to run through a bunch of the stuff, do a couple of the, talk about the running the game sections a little bit, and then we're done. So the World at War, we talked about this. The progress events of 1914 to July 1916. This is like real history. We talked about this before, and I love this part. Sings all of the lore through this is fantastic. The writing is really fantastic. Basically, it is World War I as World War I really happened from 1914 to then, I think it's the Battle of Somme in July of 1916 when the Veil tears. So there's like quotes here from stuff. There's actually a really great breakdown of like First World War and how it started and what was going on and everything like that. It's really fucking dope. It's super vibey. It sets the scene incredibly well. A lot of great pieces of art in here too. Really fucking cool. And then it talks about the world broken, the Veil torn, July 1916, the Battle of Somme, 30,000 people were killed. The others were already looking. It tore the Veil. Shit got fucked, and that's where the game started happening. And then after that, here's one of my other, like, such a random thing that drives me insane. This is a diegetic document This is a page from Alfred's journal.
Right.
It's a fake page on the side and everything. Why is it split across 2 pages? There's just like an extra little piece of the. They cut the journal page so they could put it on to the next page. Just make it a little bit shorter. It's like 3 lines. Just shorten your writing up a little bit. Or because it starts like below other stuff above. Like it's just so weird that it's just like
it's the same issue with like the art pieces from earlier on. It's the exact same issue.
Yeah, but it's not even that you're like splitting rules text now. You're literally splitting diegetic in-world document like pictures.
Yeah,
it would be almost like putting a piece of art in here, but then like chopping it off and putting like the bottom of a piece of art on the next page.
I would argue that's exactly what it is. So basically,
it's not great. There's a section about the veil. The veil is nothing new. It's been here forever. It is the space between our world and like the fucked. You know what I mean? And it becomes torn asunder. And then No Man's Land. There's a whole section here about that. It's a huge section about trench warfare, which is again really interesting. A lot of like cool information. I mean, trench warfare was fucking terrible, but you know, in the context of what we're talking about. Yeah, really great information about that stuff here. And then it goes through the breakdown of the Allied powers or the Entente Alliance. It talks about the Third French Republic, the British Empire, the Russian Empire, Italy, and the United States of America. There's a little breakdown for each one of those leading up to the war. So real historical shit leading up to it. And then what happens in 1916. And then each of them also has themes, officer attitudes, and soldier attitudes. So you really get a breakdown for like every nation at war here and the way that they're going to act and interact, right? So for example, the French one, it gives a whole breakdown of that. It talks about what happens after the veil is torn, and the themes are personal honor, the small comforts, tragic circumstances. The officer attitudes are: this generation of officers has been preparing all their careers to fight Germany and redeem the national honor lost in the last war. They are determined not to lose again, and they will do almost anything to inspire their soldiers to hold their lines and fight to the last. And then the soldier attitude says French soldiers are relaxed and somewhat fatalistic. 3 years of military service is compulsory, so the army contains every sort of French person. Most hope simply to survive the tour, etc., etc. So every nation gets those breakdowns, which I love. It's basically like adventure seeds and or not. It's lore seeds and stuff for everything. So that is the Third French Republic, as we said, the British Empire, the Russian Empire, Italy, and then the United States. We have to see what the United States themes and
the
stuff
United
is.
States was very funny because it's like they weren't there when the veil was torn, so they seemed to be a lot less bothered overall by the United States policy is literally like, if you see something weird, trust that you did see it and go ahead and shoot. Like that's their policy. I'm like, very American, you know?
Yeah. The themes are hidden agendas, promise of victory, and the quote-unquote adventure of going to Europe.
Yeah.
Officer attitude: for the most part, the whole war in Europe is a mess. The Brits and French badly botched, which now requires U.S. to help clean up.
Typical Europeans. They'll make clean, godly war like us, United States citizens.
It's just, and then there is the Central Powers, which is called the Quadruple Alliance. It's all the same stuff for the German Empire, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. Again, a shitload of lore for all of that stuff. I think, what's the page count for the lore section? Let's just go back to the table of contents real quick. It's from page 29 all the way to 57. So you get, what is that, almost 30 pages of lore. Okay, so we'll do some quick rundown for game stuff in the GM section, and then we'll be done here. So there's an X card. You know what it is. Use it if you need it. The narrator is the GM. Signal over noise. So this is basically like GM principles to start at the beginning of this here. Basically, it says signal over noise. As one of the players at the table, the narrator can join. I'm not going to read this. Story over combat, involvement over happiness, creativity over notes, horror over hope. These are principles for running the game, right? This is a weird GM section too, because like this is what you get these like principles for running the game, and then it'd be like, this is the mission structure, but then you talk about like the journey, which is literally like the core of the game, which is not in the player section like at all.
Yeah, I
which
still
is
know
so
what
weird.
it is, honestly, because I did not read all of the GM section. I read everything else, but
yeah. Well, I mean, and that, like, in context, you're like, okay, well, I got the rules of the game.
Yeah.
You just don't get the journey because you're like, well, I'm not going to read the GM section. I'm not the GM, right? Like, put the important stuff where the important stuff matters. So, basically, missions are small adventures lasting about an hour. Mission folio is what you get for each mission, right? And there's 4 parts to a mission folio. There's a mission briefing, which is background info and mission objective. There's the journey, which we're going to get to, which is like the core of the fucking game. There are the incidents, which is like the encounters that you'll have, which is like the main section of the folio, is like the shit you actually do. And then there's the decoration, what they call it, which is like the cards you get at the end of the mission. That's everything that comes in your mission folio. And it does say like they only last about like an hour. They're pretty short little adventures, or like individual excursions, basically. They're missions, right? So the journey, what the fuck is the journey? My notes say just read most of this. So this is basically the structure of the game on page 60.
Yep. Cool. Good.
All right.
So where do you expect it towards the end?
The journey is an event that happens at the first part of each mission and focuses on role-playing or character moments and helps set the tone for the events to follow. Each journey lists its requirements, i.e. 3 hearts, 1 card of each suit, and some more difficult missions also include things to avoid, as in no 6s, no more spades, whatever. The journey requirement is told to players before they contribute cards. So basically, as part of the mission, you're going to get a briefing, and then you're going to do the journey. Okay? Each player, and that is when you like put cards into a thing, right? And you can't continue on with the mission until you have done the journey. So each player must contribute 1 card from the hand to the journey, but they may contribute more if they wish. If a player has no cards, add 1 card to the journey from the deck without looking at it. By group consensus, players may elect to take more time on the journey to gather what they need and add additional cards in the deck, but never more cards than the total number of players. Sometimes a narrator may also add cards to the journey for corrupt characters. Players' hands are always secret, so open discussion of who is contributing what card is discouraged. General discussion of how confident the players are that they can succeed at the journey can be allowed, especially if it is played in character. Once all the cards have been contributed to the journey, the narrator shuffles them and deals them out face down to the players. If there are more cards than there are players, the narrator may deal themselves a journey card as well. These cards should not be added to the player's hands. Anyone may start one at a time. Players reveal their journey card and either answer the question posed by the journey. What?
Real quick. There is a sentence, anyone may start. And
it's split across multiple pages.
It's split across multiple pages with an art piece in between it.
Yeah, easily could have just put that on the next page.
Yep.
1 at a time, players reveal. So basically, right now, everyone is face down putting cards in, right? But there's requirements to the journey. So it might be like there needs to be 1 of every suit in the middle, but you can't tell each other what you're putting in, right? You put them down face in, you stick it in, they get shuffled and dealt back out. So you put cards in, but you might not get your card back. 1 at a time, players reveal the card and either answer the question posed by the journey in the voice of the character or narrate a scene of what the character does during the journey. When the narrator reveals a card, they tell which character the thoughts they describe occur to or who is involved in the scene they narrate. All answers and narrations should be inspired by the themes of the revealed cards, suit with higher numbers being more intense if appropriate. The scenes can involve role play with another character at the table. Each answer or scene should last for about a minute. Depending on the mission, successfully meeting the requirement grants a bonus to the unit. For the mission or failure will impose a penalty. Reveal this benefit or penalty after all the journey cards have been revealed. All cards contributed to the journey are put in the discard pile. If a joker is played, shuffle the deck as normal. So basically, The journey is the journey. It's you on the way to the mission, and it is a narrative act that everyone goes through. It's basically, I don't want to call it downtime, but it's a non-combat.
Yeah, it's a second mode of play. It's a narrative mode of play using the cards.
Yeah, exactly. So you have every person is going to narrate a scene as part of the journey before you actually get to the mission where you're actually going to like fight and stuff like that. I think it's interesting.
I like it.
Yeah, it's great. It really brings the RP into a tabletop role-playing game. It's a fun way to do stuff. And honestly, if that's just not your style of play, you could just not do this. Yeah. Like, yeah. But yeah, so the difficulty can float. Some missions do not list a target number for skill rolls, though many do. Basically, the part of this is basically saying that like fudge your shit, and I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah,
there's two things at the core of this game that I'm not a big fan of. One is that like when something doesn't happen, that's it. It just doesn't. Like, oh, you just missed. That's it.
Hate it.
But this entire section is basically telling you to fudge, as a GM, to fudge it, which makes no sense to me because part of the core of the game that it talks about is the unit is important, not the individual character. So if an individual character dies, oh well, it doesn't take long to make another one. It's the unit that's important. So actually reading some of this, it basically says, even with tightly scripted mission, every possibility cannot be covered. Sometimes the numbers on the page end up not working for your group. There might be sneaking past every guard. Many times you will be adjusting or inventing target numbers on the fly. Roughly half of skill rolls should fail. The difficulty floats to the level of the party. Lower or raise target numbers as you see fit. You can also put more antagonists in the fight or have allies show up to help. Another option is make any skill roll a challenge. So it's basically saying, like, if you throw too much at the players, just lower the target number so you don't kill them all. Or if it's too easy, just raise it and throw more people in and make it harder. It's just like, that's just such a 5e mindset, in my opinion.
It is, yeah.
Just like, don't kill them too hard. Don't just like set it up, and if they die, they die. Like I couldn't disagree more with that style of play, and I understand if people like that style of play, but that feels very much like, as someone who played 5e for a long time and who did this, I can tell you right now, you're not playing the game at that point. You are telling a story.
Yeah, you're telling your
yeah, because what the players are doing doesn't matter. You've already decided you're not going to kill them, so you're just wasting 3 hours of combat time. You know what I mean? Like, the players' actions have no actual consequences whatsoever. So anyway, mobs, they exist. There are mobs. Antagonists with whispers, they work the same as the PCs do. There's a section here on corruption. My notes say the rules for corruption here are different than the previous rules on page 8.
I'll have to take your word for it because I'm not going back.
Yeah. You use the player's character's corruption against him in several ways. Firstly, they contribute cards to the journey. You add 1 additional card for each character with 3 corruption, 2 for 4. Additional cards may give you because corruption is secret. There are no requirements. When a character reaches 5 corruption, they're on their last mission. I don't remember. I mean, I have it in big red letters. I don't know why I did that, but I'm not going to get too deep on it. Character death. 0 in any attribute, and you're dead. Like, that's it. Like, perfect. I like that. There's no death check. There's no saves. There's no nothing. You're just done. There's a weird section here of, like, resources and, like, other media, which could have just been, like, the back of the book or the front of the book or anything. But it talked about, like, a bunch of books, film and TV websites that have, like, virtual tours of the Italian front, a list of Canada's first World War battles, like Wikipedia articles and stuff like that. All right, antagonists. What's up?
Just cool stuff to have, you know?
Yeah. Okay, the way that antagonists work. How to read these entries. So basically, antagonists are going to have a name, a type, an initiative value, armor. They're bronze, smarts, and gusts. So they are going to have these attributes work just like the player characters ones. There's weapons, skills, abilities, weaknesses, and rewards. So realistically, antagonists work exactly the way PCs work, because PCs are pretty straightforward and easy. And then there are we do get more of the typewriter font in the little stat blocks for bad guys. So we're just gonna look at one person, commando, right? A soldier with more fighting training than an average grunt, trained to near the peak of human ability. They're no longer surprised by many ordinary deaths, blah 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 blah. So the type is solo, the initiative value is 7, the armor is 4, brawn 5, smarts 3, guts 4. Their weapons are knife and machine gun. Their skills and abilities are 3 dice in melee, 3 dice in stealth, and 3 dice in ranged. And the reward is you get to draw a card. That is a stat block for an antagonist. Easy peasy, right?
Easy.
Cool art throughout, and then just the whole big chunk of basically a bestiary. Fuck off. I can't get this. There it goes. I don't know if that. I don't think the pop-up show, but it creates like a mini little pop-up thing. Yeah. And then you get adventures, but I didn't even realize I was reading adventures for a while, because there's nothing that says adventure. It just suddenly says the belly of the beast, Crystal Mazer. Like, there's nothing that says adventures. Like, there's no differentiation. There's no break.
So you get. I've come to expect.
Yeah. So I think there's like 3-ish adventures in the back. There's the one I just said. There's the lamps are going out. And then there is the sword quest. So for example, I just wanted to give an example of the things you need in a mission. So the mission objective is here, the journey. So we talked about the journey. It says you travel through untamed woods, stealing through dappled shadows and heavy foliage to avoid conflict as much as possible. The sounds of artillery and firearms echo around you, but there are still occasional moments of eerie silence, even in the middle of a war zone. So that is the scene that's being set for all of your scenes. The requirement is 1 face card. So at some point in the journey, you just have to reveal a face card. Cool. And then there is the narrative in those moments of silence. What do you observe about your traveling companions? One of you is the promised king. Who do you think is most worthy among you? Let the hierarchy and suits of the cards inform your answers. On a success, the player with the highest face card is the presumptive chosen one, etc., etc. Failure, there's no readily apparent leader among the players, and we don't read adventures. I just wanted to give a little bit of an example of the journey. That's it. And then it gives you the rest of the stuff. So if you want to read more of those, look at the fucking book, or buy the fucking book. There's a character sheet in the back, which is really super fucking straightforward.
Yeah, it really is.
And I like it. I think it looks diegetic because of the typewriter font. But basically, you get like your name, you get the recruitment, which is like all the pips and stuff, and your scores for bronze, smarts, and guts. A section for equipment, a section for your service record, a section for your personal history. There's 5 dots for corruption that you'll just mark off, and on the side there's training. And then all of those listed, and then there's options for 3 different paths and the rituals that you get for it, and then a giant X card that could have just been laying out, and that's the book.
We did it.
I want to go over. I just want to look real quick at Blood on the Snow.
Yeah.
This is the campaign dossier, but I want to just talk about how much better this one is laid out than the other one for like a bunch of reasons. I will say they still use the same fake page, which is weird, but it's a different background, which is weird. So they must have got it from the same. It's got the same spine in it, but it doesn't have nearly to the same degree. The fake page is on the left. It's a little bit cropped down, but the background is more like what is this? Like a light bluish, whitish.
Okay.
Am I wrong? Oh, are you not looking at it?
I'm looking at it right now on yours.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's much lighter than the brown.
Yes,
absolutely. It looks better. There's like a blood splatter at the bottom of the pages, which is fine. Again, it's more texture than fake or whatever. No, it's still the same page. It's still got those same dots and stuff. They must have just like color corrected it to a light kind of bluish white.
Oh, you're right. They must have.
Yeah. but it's so much better. It's so much better.
Yeah.
But then even if we just go to a page, just look at the font on this, which this looks almost just like a Times New Roman. This is page 3. First of all, the header at the top is blue and underlined. And a different font, or if it's not, it's like a bigger, it's got to be a different font, but it's like a big, bold font. And then if we go back to like the Never Going Home font, like the page font, again, this is like a very, I don't know if it's just like the it is also just a serif font, but the actual like, I don't know why it's just better. Maybe it's just the margins are so much bigger.
Yeah, I mean, the margins are a ton bigger. It's still very wall of text.
Oh, the font is smaller. I think it's the same font, but it's smaller. It is still wall of texty, but bigger margins, better headers,
smaller,
different color headers.
Font.
Yeah. When they do the diegetic like pages in it, they keep it to one page. There's a shadow on them, and it's such a different color than the background that it looks much better. It's not that much different. You can tell that it's a similar thing, but there's a much better consistency for headers, subheaders, bolding, tabbing, bulleting, everything like that. It still looks roughly the same style, but it's just better. So clearly, like, they know they can, and this one was laid out by Charlie Ferguson-Avery. It's just a better laid out book than the original one. So, all right, going to the review scores. So, for those that don't know what it is we do here on the show, we do review the book, and then we give scores for various metrics based on the things we looked at. So we give a total of up to 10 points for 5 different metrics. We do give numbers to our terrible opinions. Those metrics are art and layout, which is the art of the book, and the layout of the book visually, just visually. There's the usability, which is actually like bookmarks, hyperlinks, if sections are in the right section. Basically, how easy is the book usable for learning the game and playing and running the game. The rule set, which is if it's an adapted rule set, how well is it adapted if it's a unique rule set. Do we like it? Originality is just originality in any aspect of it. Could be lore, could be rules, could be anything. Value is bang for your buck. It is not just the cost of the book, the cost of the PDF, but also like the amount of content that there is for you to play. If there's apps, if there's websites, if there's a bunch of other stuff, like basically, again, how much bang do you get for your buck? So my issue, I think, with art and layout here is going to be that obviously the art fucks super hard.
Yeah, but the layout
is one of the worst laid out books I've ever. One of the worst we've looked at on the show.
Yeah, definitely.
So I almost want to just do layout for this and just like delete art off of this one, because it's like obviously Charlie's art slaps, and I would hate to give a low score for using somebody else's art in the book in bad ways.
Yeah, I mean, the art is obviously like incredibly high score, but let's talk about layout for this one, because
it's so and the way that we kind of do it is basically like if we have nothing good or bad to say, it's a 5, right? That is bang average, because the max is 10. I think there's only been a couple that I've got 10 in our layout. 5 is if we have nothing good or bad to say. My God, do I have a lot of bad to say about this?
I have a lot of bad to say about this. This is a sub 5 for me.
Oh, it's unquestionably. It's just how low does it go? So I think honestly that I'm gonna almost disregard art for this. Yeah. Because obviously, Charlie's art is fucking 10 out of 10, right?
Right.
So just looking at the visual layout, and that's not even getting into the usability aspects of the layout.
Yeah, that's true.
Visually, I think it's a bad font choice. I think the headings and subheadings and or lack thereof is bad. I think the breakup of like some of the in-world documents across multiple pages. I think the way that they put the art into the book. Let's talk about art as in the way they used it, not the art itself. How about that?
Yeah,
I don't like those.
It's not
those
used well. Yeah,
yeah.
Just like you said, it breaking things up in like weird ways. It's like this is not the way that. This is not good.
It's not, and like they could have just like full page some things, but specifically layout. It's so weird. Like that one random bullet point that's like way up to the side, but then like double tabbed in.
I didn't realize it. I genuinely did not realize it was a bullet.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I only knew because I highlighted it, so I could see like because you can like highlight the text. Visually, it's bad. I mean, I would probably. Bro, I don't even know. I don't have a lot of good to say. I think
don't either.
How low do you want to go?
This might be like a 3 for me. Like I guess it's still a book. Like there's still words on the page. So
3. I think 3 was.
There are attempts at like having headers and stuff and some sort of delineation for information. It's just not done at all well.
Yeah, I think we've given a 4 before. And I would say that this book is so frustratingly, inconsistently, poorly laid out that like it has to be the lowest score we've ever given. Like I think this is an easy 3. And again, I want to clarify that has nothing to say about the quality of Charlie Ferguson-Avery's art, because I think that is like, honestly, I think this is why this book made $100,000. Yes. It is the cover, because Charlie Ferguson-Avery's art slaps so fucking hard. It is the way that the art was used in the layout and how just bad the layout is. 3, usability. So no bookmarks. No hyperlinks. The table of content is a bunch of weird stuff. I think that I want to talk about rules language in usability more than in rule set, if that makes sense. Like, because I think the way that the rules are written and the way it, I think, affects the usability of the game in, and you know what I'm talking about, like bad rules language versus like rules
absolutely
themselves. I think the rules language in numerous sections is pretty poor. I think the explanations are pretty could be written in ways to make more, like, I specifically keep harping on the fact that like rank is like an important keyword in the game, and it is like, it's like they forgot sometimes that it was called rank, and then other times they remembered it. Like in the entire character creation section, the only time you use the words rank are in character growth, in like character advancement, basically. At no point when it's describing like attributes and putting points into your attributes does it tell you that however many points you put into the attributes is your rank in that attribute, right? I think that having all of the rules before you ever hear about character creation is not great. I think the fact that like basically the way that the game is played, as in like the structure of actually playing the game, is not in any part of the player section whatsoever. There's no breakdown even at the beginning of the book that says this is basically what you're gonna do, and it's not even until page like 60 when you start talking about like mission briefings and stuff do you actually get any structure of the gameplay whatsoever. Which, like you said, if you're like, oh, like I didn't really deep dive the GM section because that's the GM stuff, like, and so, for some reason stuff between principles you get like game structure, it's pretty poor. I think it's not give me a number. Great. I think I could go higher than 5 on this.
I don't think I could go higher than 5 on this either.
Yeah, let's go 5 here. Rule set. Okay.
Hey, I like this part.
I think the rule set is this is the reason we go over this, because like generally, I'm gonna be honest, we've never given, like, the max score is a 50. We've never given a 25 or less, right? Which means we've never given like 5s across the board or a negative score in total across the board. We don't do games we don't like. We don't do games that we're going to be like mean about. I know we're pretty critical of this one. I don't think we're mean. I think we're just pointing out stuff that's whatever. But I don't think we would really often choose to pick a game that we're going to give 8 total points in the first 2 scores, right? The reason we really want to talk about this one, the reason I really want to talk about is the next 3 scores, basically. As far as the rule set goes, the book is poorly laid out, whatever. As a product, I don't think it's very good. As a game, I think it's really fucking good.
Yeah,
I think it's super interesting.
There's a lot of fun to be had here.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the skill roll is cool. Like dice pool that you can then manipulate based on
the manipulation gives a lot to the dice pool. You know, it really adds a lot to that style of gameplay.
But then on top of that, your health is your attribute points. So as you get your ass kicked, your manipulations go down, which makes everything harder. So there's this really cool feedback loop built into it.
Yeah.
And then the structure where you're using the cards and you're actually spinning them as like your memories and things like that, on top of like the narrative journey that you go through to get to the mission and things like that, is really fantastic. The whispers are amazing. I mean, as far as the rules that goes, this is great. Like I said, I think it is not a great product, but I think it's a great game. That's how I kind of feel about this. I'm pretty high on this rule set. Like, I think one of the things we talked about before, and the reason that like sometimes, even though we love rules light systems, sometimes systems that have more depth will get higher points is because of the way that you have to make those systems sing. And I think the way that the dice pool system mixed with the manipulation system mixed with the card system all
like
feeds in on itself.
Card system. Yeah, I think it actually works really well all together.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I really want to play this. I think it's great. I think do I think it's great? I do think it's great.
Okay.
I think it's great. Well, how do you feel about it?
Pitch me a number, Ryan.
8.
I'm right there with you. That was my original. The moment we started talking about rules, I was like 8. So
yeah, I think this is.
I really do like this is.
Yeah, I think this is super solid. You know, we've only ever given like 2 10s, so 9 is kind of the peak. I think this is right below that. I think this honestly, this could be one of those ones where no, I think 8. I think 8 feels really good for this. Originality, I think originality is fucking super high too. I mean, not a ton of World War I games out there, right? I mean, Trench Crusade is not a tabletop role playing game. That's the thing that I feel like this is the closest to this. But the combination of real world history with the veil and everything that comes after that, I think is fantastic. I think the lore is fantastic. I think that the system itself, the +1 system with like the dice manipulation, I think that goes to originality. I think there's a lot of really fun, unique stuff with that. Yeah. The use of like jokers and cards and stuff like that. I'm pretty high on originality with this. I think this is the vibes are great. And I want to throw that in here too, because like the way that it's all tied in is really fantastic too.
Yeah. I'm at about an 8.5 for originality. So
yeah, I'm probably a solid 8 for
solid
originality.
8? Cool.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to convince me to go to 9, I might be convinced, but if you're good with an 8, okay. Yeah, I think again the vibes on this are absolutely fucking immaculate. Value. Did I?
Be off the charts in value, right?
I mean, there's as far as like the amount of available content through the fucking roof. I mean, we talked about this before. There's an entire bestiary book. There are 2 different books of Magic and Whispers, and then the 21 like just adventure like missions in the Breach, and then you have the entire war basically broken up with an adventure in 1914, or an entire mission dossier thing, campaign dossier in 1914, 15, 16, 17, and 18, which I think is really interesting because the Veil didn't sunder until 1916. So what are you doing in the campaign dossiers in like 14 and 15? You know what I mean?
Yeah, what is happening?
Well, you'll have to buy the books and find out. Yeah. But the amount of available content in this is astronomical, through the roof. It is really interesting. I have read through like a bunch of it. Like Blood on the Snow is obviously like really, really fucking good. But I think that's really great. Did I, in my notes, did I put stuff on the bottom, or did I just link to the Kickstarter? I think I might have just, no, I think I did.
Well, I can tell you right now, if you want to get Never Going Home or a couple of the like additional books, they're all $20 each on Wedding Games site. You can also find the PDFs on Drive-Through RPG. PDFs are $10. And I think that they have.
Oh, did it go up? Oh, they were on sale when I put it down.
Well, the Never Going Home PDFs are actually on sale right now for $10. They're actually $15. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 120 pages. Easy peasy.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And then you can also get. So I don't think I was really able to find any physicals of this anywhere. But you can get a soft cover print on demand of this from Drive-Through for $20. And it's on sale right now for PDF and POD for $20, normally $30. $30 for premium. Is it premium? Oh, standard. It's not premium, it's standard. Even at $30 for $15 for this as a PDF, I think like you could charge 20 easy. And then $30 for the soft cover and PDF together, I think is a steal too. So as far as like the actual cost, I think it's good. I think the amount of game there is out there is great. I don't know. I think I'm pretty high on value because like not only is there a lot of content, it's a good spread of content between the bestiary, the magic books, dossiers, and just whole mission books. I think there's a lot, and and it's pretty inexpensive. I mean, as far as so there's not we look at some like Mothership has an app and shit like that can add into this.
Merkborg's free.
Yeah, Merkborg's free. I mean, $10 for the PDF is basically free in this economy. But I don't know. I'm probably between 7 and 8 on value. I mean, there's so much stuff.
I'm actually more leaning towards an 8 on this one as well. I think there's a lot going on here for not an insane amount of money. And I do want to say that like I even throw in value like the fact that these are available too. That you can get cards and dice and stuff for it too. I think I'm pretty high on the value for that. So when we look at the scores all together, the total is 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, I guess. So it's a 32, which is honestly higher than I expected. Yeah.
But when you look at why, right? Rule set was 8, originality was 8, value was 8, and then the art, layout, and usability, 2 different scores together equaled 8. So you'll see why. Like the layout, again, the game I think is really, really, really good, fun, interesting. Vibes are great, lore is great, everything is great. The product, the actual physical book, the structure of the book, the rules language, and the layout of the book is pretty poor in my opinion. I think this thing a 2E of this with a whole new layout and a rewrite top to bottom of like the rules language would go so fucking hard. And I would do anything for that to happen. But you'll see in the scores where that happened. Great game, poor product. That's it. That is Never Going Home. Score of a 32 here. I have no idea what we're doing next. We have some cool stuff coming up that might have got pushed back for timing, but we got some really fun, interesting stuff. If you want to get a little preview of what those things could be, go listen to our last Not Cat Chats with Jert. I think about halfway through in our flu-riddled minds, we started ranting about the possible fun, interesting things that could be coming up on the show.
Sounds right.
And we're not going to repeat that again until they happen. But cool, interesting things coming up. We'll talk about what we're going to do next week. Oh, tomorrow. Listen, if you're not listening to this live, go watch the next episode, which should be out shortly after this. We're going to have Vidicia Valetti on the show talking about their new project, Land Once Magic. So if you're listening now, go check that episode because I'll probably drop them back to back. But Vidicia we've looked at a bunch of their stuff. Great person, great creative mind. Super excited to talk about them. Gonna be one of the last interviews we ever do here on the show. So show up for that as we talk to them. Super excited. They're someone that has been on my list of really wanting to talk to for a long time. So
yeah, that'd be a
that's
cool
it.
one.